Hello one, hello all. Welcome to the Suitors of the Domino Lady podcast, the first and only podcast dedicated exclusively to the avenging adventures of the pulps, the Domino Lady. I'm your host, Sam Oatley, and today we are officially announcing the Domino Lady 90 Years Young collection. This will be a collection of original short stories with the Domino Lady, which we are releasing to celebrate the character's 90th anniversary this year. But these are not stories written by me, but stories written by you. We are opening this collection up to the public, and you will be able to submit your Domino Lady story for consideration. I'm very excited for this project, and I think any Domino Lady fans who are writers or artists will be interested too. You can check out the submission form in the description and comments section if you want to start ASAP, but I am going to give some specific details about the collection and this podcast, so I heavily recommend you listen so you understand what this collection is going for. To start with, I want to talk about what we want story-wise for the collection. We are looking for original short stories featuring the pulp heroine, the Domino Lady. When we say short stories, we generally mean word counts between 5,000 to 8,000 words. These were the average lengths of most of the original Domino Lady pulp stories, so we wanted to aim for that length for most stories. The one exception to this rule will be a longer short story of around 10,000 to 15,000 words. We are accepting one story with this length, emphasis on one. Once we've chosen a story in that word count range, that opening is closed. Also keep in mind that if your submission goes over 15,000 words, it will be discarded outright. The Domino Lady was built off brief, punchy fiction. If you can't tell a satisfying story within the prescribed word count, this is not the collection for you. You can also do stories under 5,000 words, but keep in mind that we are not buying microfiction. Try to go no lower than 2,000 words if you really want to write a brief story. We also have a cap at 9 stories. Since this is the Domino Lady's 9th decade, 9 stories for each decade seems fitting, and will keep the published stories to a manageable amount. Only one story per author will be accepted, so don't send multiple submissions at once in an attempt to flood our inbox. Send your best work, and if there's time after your first rejection to still submit, you may send another submission. The only instance where we may allow more than one story per author is if not enough submissions come, and we need the accepted authors to fill out the last few stories. We are also primarily aiming this collection to attract new or upcoming writers who have had little to no published work. There have been many complaints in the pulp fandom about lack of opportunities for new writers, so we are providing an opportunity for those who desire it. Keep in mind that experienced writers are still welcome to submit. We will not discard your story just because you have written for 20 years. If it is a good Domino Lady story, we want it. We will also ask both new and experienced writers for links to their work and websites if they have any. We want to advertise the writers for this collection to the best of our ability. So that's the broad overview of the project, but what do the stories submitted for 90 Years Young need to feature? We require 5 things in your Domino Lady story. Number 1, the Domino Lady herself. The Domino Lady must be the main focus of your story, with her portrayal being fairly close to the original 6 pulp stories featuring her, which we will talk about in a minute. You can be creative about how she's the main focus, but make sure she is the central character. It must also be Ellen Patrick who is the Domino Lady, not an invented character who has assumed the identity. Number 2. The story must take place during the 1930s. The 1930s was the canonical time of the Domino Lady's original adventures, which officially occurred between 1933 to 1936. Since Ellen Patrick is to be the Domino Lady, it follows that this must be the time these stories take place in. You may set your story between 1933 and 1939. You can also be vague about the specific year, as long as the story obviously takes place during this era. Number 3. The Domino Lady must wear either of her 2 official costumes. These are the black dress with the white cape, which she canonically wore from 1933 to July 1936, or her white dress with the black cape, which she canonically wore from August 1936 onward. If you choose a specific date or year you want the story to take place in, the Domino Lady must wear the corresponding costume for that time period. This requirement is looser if you don't pick a specific date, but you still must choose one of these 2 costumes. The white dress black cape ensemble is her most well-known costume, so we recommend that outfit if you have no strong preference. Number 4. The Domino Lady must be working by herself in the story proper. Too many recent Domino Lady stories have been team-ups where she's one cast member and not the main focus of the story. We want the focus to be on the Domino Lady herself for this collection, so no aid from outside sources or team-ups are allowed. Keep her a lone wolf fighting her battles alone. Number 5. The story's setting should preferably be in California. The Domino Lady stories heavily featured state corruption within California as a plot point, and all but one of her original stories took place there, so we recommend setting them in California. We did say preferably because we will relax this rule if you have a particularly strong narrative reason for setting the story elsewhere. So that is everything your Domino Lady story should have, but what are some things it should not have? There are 5 things we do not want in your story. If we see them in your story will be rejected outright. Number 1. No crossovers with other characters whatsoever. This includes copyrighted characters, public domain characters, and pastiches, which we define as characters that are original but clearly meant to be a copyrighted character. We do not want these kinds of characters for various reasons, and we'll give you quick explanations. We do not want copyrighted characters since we do not have permission to use them, and trying to do so will get this collection canned. We do not want public domain characters because while many of them are free to use, there are a couple whose copyright status is in flux. You also occasionally have predatory copyright claimants who do not respect public domain and will slap you with a cease and desist for frivolous reasons. We do not want the hassle of figuring out which public domain characters are kosher or not, so just don't use any of them other than the Domino Lady herself. We do not want pastiches because while they are safe, they would distract from the collection's main focus of the Domino Lady. Number 2. No characters or events from other copyrighted Domino Lady stories. The Domino Lady has been used multiple times since 2009 by other publishers such as Bold Venture Press, Moonstone Books, and Airship 27. These stories feature original characters and events unique to those tales, and as such, are copyrighted by their respective creators. Do not use these characters or storylines even if you are the original writer of the published story. Aside from avoiding legal complications, we also want readers to be able to enter this collection without needing to read outside material. Number 3. No fantastical elements like science fiction or fantasy, unless they can be logically explained. The Domino Lady stories were relatively grounded and had no fantastical elements we associate with modern-day science fiction or fantasy. Avoid using such concepts. The sole exception will be if you find a way to utilize these concepts in a realistic way that keeps them believably within the realms of reality. An example to pull from might be the Shadow magazine, where occasional dips into fantastical elements like face changers and giant prehistoric creatures were explained with outlandish but scientifically plausible explanations. If you can believably pull off sci-fi fantasy with realistic explanations, go for it. But be aware that we'll favor more grounded depictions of the Domino Lady's fight against crime. Number 4. No mysteries focus around Owen Patrick's murder. The murder of Ellen Patrick's father is an important part of the Domino Lady's character, but it is also a story idea that has been done to death by many other writers over the last 15 years. Do not send a story where that is the main focus of the Domino Lady's adventure. We want stories focused on different mysteries and adventures. Number 5. No pornographic content. This requirement is a sticky wicket, as the Domino Lady was a sexually charged character who was published in an adult-oriented spicy pulp magazine. However, the actual content never went beyond heavy petting and makeout sessions, cutting away before explicit sexual content could take place. It was roughly PG-13 level content by today's standards. As we wish to both emulate classic pulp storytelling and do not want restrictions on selling this collection in certain venues, we ask that any sexual content not go over the top in its depictions. This is somewhat difficult content to gauge, so do not fear to write sexual passages. Just be aware you might get an acceptance letter that comes with the caveat that you have to edit those spicy moments a bit. Of course, if you send us unambiguous pornography, we will discard the submission outright, because you did not even try to temper your content to our standards. Okay, so that's what we do and don't want for the collection. But since we're aiming for newer writers, there's a chance that some of you might not even know who the Domino Lady is. As such, we are giving some recommended readings so that you can be better prepared. The highest recommended reading is the original 6 Domino Lady stories themselves. These stories come from the pulp magazine's Saucy Romantic Adventures and Mystery Adventure magazine. These stories are The Domino Lady Collects, The Domino Lady Doubles Back, The Domino Lady's Handicap, Emeralds Aboard, Black Legion, and The Domino Lady's Double. These stories may be found in the Compliments of the Domino Lady collection from Bold Venture Press. There are multiple other collections available online, but we recommend Bold Venture Press's edition due to it having the original pulp illustrations. Any character or event that occurs in these stories are free to be used and referenced in your story, as they are all in the public domain. We also have discussed the first 3 stories on this podcast, and the links to those episodes will be in the description. You should also check out reprints of other spicy pulp magazines of the era. As mentioned earlier, spicy pulps were softcore pornography of the mid to late 1930s, in the milieu that the Domino Lady existed in. Reading these spicy magazines would give you a strong idea about the style we are going for. We have linked to the Pulp Superfan website in the description, whose article about Spicy Pulp magazine lists several examples. Many of these magazines have replicas or reprint collections that are easy to get at online vendors. Now, to move on to the other minutiae of the collection. The first is formatting rules. We are following the example of Cersova Publishing and ask that you follow standard manuscript formatting. This is a style that is easily discoverable on the internet, and we have included a link to the style in the description below. Standard manuscript font is fairly simple, with the following basic rules. Courier font, 12-point font size, double-spaced lines of text, 1-inch margins, half-inch indentations. You must also include your name, email address, and final word count of your story on the first page, either in the left or right-hand corner. This is a very simplistic formatting style, so you following it proves to me that you read the form or watched this video. If it does not follow the formatting, I will know you are not paying attention and your story will be rejected outright. Regarding submission rules, as I stated earlier, we do not accept multiple submissions. You can only submit one story at a time. If you submit 2 or more stories at the same time, all of your stories will be discarded and you will not be allowed to participate in the collection. The sole exception is if you get a rejection letter for your first submission and there's time for you to write another story. You can attempt another submission in that circumstance, but be aware that stories submitted before your second story will get preferential treatment. It is not fair to give you a second chance and not give first-time submitters an opportunity to demonstrate their work. We also ask you do not do simultaneous submissions, as all stories submitted must be submitted for this collection only. However, once the final story lineup is decided and announced, any unaccepted work can be submitted wherever you wish. Now, the big question every potential author is wondering is this: will authors be paid for contributing their stories? The answer is yes. As a working author, I know the importance of paying the writer, and will not do anything less for this collection. All authors will be compensated by either check or PayPal upon their story's acceptance, as well as receiving both digital and physical copies of the book. However, our pay rate is only a penny a word. This is partially to emulate the payment style of many pulp publishers in the 1930s, and partially because it is all that we can afford. If you follow our suggestions for 5,000 to 8,000 word stories, your payment will be $50 to $80. Final payment is decided by the final word count of the fully edited story. There will also be no royalties awarded for any stories submitted to the collection. Now, the second biggest question: what are the rights to an accepted story? The author retains all rights to the intellectual property of the story and any original characters created within. Your work is automatically copyrighted to you upon publication in the collection. However, by purchasing the story, we, the publisher, receive global first print and digital publication rights, which includes audio formats. Upon purchase, you give us exclusive rights to publish and use your story for 1 year, following the publication of your work. During this year-long period, you agree to not publish the purchased story in part or in whole in any other publication without our consent. After the 1-year period is over, we will retain the right to publish and sell your work in the collection, as well as using your name and story to promote the collection. However, once the 1-year period is up, you will be free to publish your story in any other publications. That is all we have for writers, but some of you might be wondering, are artists allowed to submit to this collection? The answer is, for the time, no. We want to feature artwork within the collection, but we also want the art to correspond to the story's content. As such, art cannot be submitted until we know what stories we will have in the collection. We also may just hire an artist to do all the interior illustrations anyway, as we will be hiring an artist for the cover. Or we may not even hire interior artists because there may be time limits that prevent artists from doing the work satisfactorily. We will, however, have an artist form in the description below, where you can show us some of your previous work and your preferred payment range. If we do accept artists, we want artists who can work in black and white and who do well with female anatomy, for obvious reasons given the spiciness of the Domino Lady character. We will not be doing payment by contributor's copy, as we find it unfair that the writers would get cash for use in multiple ways, and the artists would not. Artists will be paid just like the writers, with a rate decided between us and the artist. Though artists will likewise receive a digital and physical copy of the collection as well. Now, you may have just heard me say time limit just then. We are indeed on a deadline, as we wish this collection to be ready for Pulp Fest 2026, which is the premier pulp fiction convention within the United States. The convention starts July 30th, which means we desire the book to be fully put together by late June. This also means we have to reserve a vendor's table several months beforehand. However, I won't bother making that reservation if nobody submits to this collection, so please submit sooner rather than later. This also means that submissions will only be open from today to March 31st. This gives you almost 2 months to type out a Domino Lady story, so I don't want to hear any belly aching that you had no time to study the character and write something out. This is also why I suspect we might not do interior art, as ending story submissions on March 31st means that artists would only have April, May, and half of June to finish a minimum of 9 illustrations. It might be possible, but unless we find a confident artist who matches our price range, this makes it more unlikely than likely. But if you are a quick and confident artist, feel free to contact me via the artist form in the description. We also want to announce that if the collection is successfully contributed to in both writing and artwork, we will be primarily funding the collection via crowdfunding. Do not worry, I have the funds for both writers and artists at the moment, and can fund the project out of pocket. But crowdfunding is a good way of determining consumer interest and making profitable returns on a project. While celebrating the Domino Lady is my main objective with this collection, being able to see whether there is interest in the collection helps us gauge whether there is any drive for future Domino Lady or other pulp collections. The details of the crowdfunding will be worked out over the next 2 months as I consult with fellow creators who have crowdfunded and learned the best methods for success. The final note I have is one regarding stories written by artificial intelligence. It should go without saying, but I'll say it anyway. We will not accept any stories written by artificial intelligence software. We desire stories written by people who have an affection and interest in the Domino Lady, not a simulacrum that is cobbling together a story based on other people's works. While we'd like to go by the trust system, enough incidents of artificially produced works being submitted to writing contests have occurred that we're taking no chances. We are using AI detecting software on all stories submitted to the collection to make sure that they are acceptable. If your work is found to be AI, you will be excluded from the collection. Even if you send another story later on that is not AI and wholly original, you will still not be accepted. Is it possible you could sneak an AI story by us? Absolutely, but it's definitely not going to be easy. All of this also applies to AI artwork. Give us art by people, not by programs. So that is the full announcement of the Domino Lady, 90 Years Young. I hope that this project interests some of you and that I am able to see some of the fabulous stories you have. If you prefer to see all of these rules written down, the author's submission form will have all of this information on it too. You can find the story submission form in the description and pinned comment below. Any artists who hear this and are interested in discussing artwork can also check out the artist form in the description and pinned comment below. This form will have submissions available, but just for demonstrations of your work if you want to show what you've done in the past. If that sounds like something you want to do, feel free to fill out that form and let us see what you got. Okay, with all of that out of the way, I wanted to give a few updates to any long-time podcast listeners. I know I said we'd be doing the final 3 Domino Lady stories and the Xana O'Savin stories over the last 2 months, but that obviously hasn't happened. For the Domino Lady stories, it is mostly because I take a long time doing the deep dives for those that it takes me a while to write the episodes out. The Xana O'Savin series was delayed because I wanted to read more Pat Savage stories before I looked at her tales, as well as Craig McDonald's Hector Lassiter series. Between setting up 90 Years Young and reading all those Pat Savage stories, I didn't really jump into Xana that much yet. I will be trying to get through those over the next 2 months, and I definitely want to finish the last 3 original Domino Lady stories before the story submission period is done. So that is all for now. Before we go, I wanted to shout out a few publications that have supported us. The first is The Shadowed Circle, a cultural magazine I work for that examines the pulp character, the Shadow. We recently released our 8th issue, so you should definitely subscribe to the magazine and check out our other books if you're a Shadow fan. Our website and social media pages will be in the description. I also wanted to shout out 2 publications that are featuring advertisements for us in their pages. The first is the Doc Talos magazine, which focuses on a Doc Savage pastiche with a more sensual take on the Savage mythos. You should definitely check them out if you'd like to see a more adult-oriented Doc Savage character, or if you want to see pulp with a more explicitly erotic tone. Basically, think Philip Jose Farmer and you've got an idea of what to expect. The second publication is the science fiction fantasy magazine Sursova, who featured an ad of ours in their fall issue, released back in September, as well as their recent winter issue. I've been reading them for several years now, both their magazine and their other book publications, and they're a wonderful sci-fi fantasy publisher that harken back to pulp-style writing. They are actually my biggest inspiration for doing this collection, as their Mighty Sons of Hercules story collection showed me how you could do a story collection on a reasonable budget. They are also doing their Mighty Sons of Hercules Volume 2 Kickstarter now as well, which you should absolutely support. The link to that campaign will be in the description. I also posted links to both Doc Talos and Sursova's websites and social media in the description. That is all I have for now, so it's time to sign off. Thank you very much for listening, stay tuned for the next episode, get to writing those stories, and good night to all you suitors of the Domino Lady.